The train was rushing Jasper home. Exactly 2 years ago, he was leaving his native land with a heavy heart, going to serve in the army. Now, only a few kilometers from home, all that reminded him of his service was a paratrooper uniform and a parachute tattoo on his shoulder. His mother, a quiet and kind-faced woman who had raised him on her own, was waiting for him at home. Despite the hardships she endured, she was a kind and honest person. Jasper loved his mother and also loved his fiancée, Amanda. She was his neighbor, and they had been friends since childhood. They sat next to each other at school, and as they grew up, their feelings for each other grew as well. As the train approached its destination, Jasper leaned against the window and eagerly gazed at the familiar buildings from his childhood. The train slowed down and stopped. Jasper got off and took a deep breath of the cool autumn air before heading to the cab stand. 20 minutes later, he arrived at his mother's apartment building and pressed the doorbell. At the bar, he ordered a beer, but before he could take a sip, someone slapped him on the shoulder. Jasper turned around and recognized his friend Paul. They hugged and ordered whiskey to celebrate their long-awaited reunion. Paul immediately noticed that Jasper looked gloomy and asked what was wrong. When he heard that Jasper couldn't find Amanda, Paul sadly informed him that she was getting married to the son of a prominent figure, possibly a judge or prosecutor. Jasper was shocked and grabbed Paul's shirt, demanding to know what he was talking about. Paul laughed bitterly and told him to check for himself, giving him the address of the wedding tomorrow. Jasper rushed out of the bar and locked himself in his room, ignoring the knocks on the door and refusing to open his eyes. The next day, he reluctantly got up, got dressed, and silently left the house. He wanted to confirm Paul's words and see Amanda for himself. He didn't know what he would do next. With his head lowered, Jasper walked towards the restaurant where the celebration was taking place. As he entered the noisy, crowded hall, he immediately spotted Amanda. She was sitting in a beautiful white dress next to a young man in a light suit who was whispering something in her ear. Jasper took a glass without looking and took a few steps before stopping. Amanda saw Jasper, turned very pale, and covered her face with her hands. Someone in the crowd demanded a toast from the new late guest, and Jasper was handed a microphone. Keeping his eyes on Amanda, he waited for a pause until everyone had calmed down, and then proudly looked up and said, "Hello, my dear ex-fiancé. I hope that you haven't forgotten me, and that you remember how you once promised me that you would wait for your soldier from the army." Jasper paused, looked around at the guests who were frozen in tension, and continued, "I won't keep you long. I will only say a few words. I loved you with all my heart." Jasper almost shouted these words, and then threw his glass on the floor, turned sharply, and with an army-like gait walked to the door amidst the excited whispers of the guests. He went into a bar and ordered a bottle of vodka and drank a glass of scalding liquid. A little later, Jasper was approached by his old acquaintance Mike, who was a biker. The guys started talking and exchanged painful memories of betraying women, drinking one shot of vodka after another. Finally, drunk and fired up with contempt for all women, Mike suggested dispelling their melancholy and taking a ride on his bike. Jasper thought for a while and agreed on the condition that he got on the wheel himself, because it had been so long since he had ridden a motorcycle. In a couple of minutes, they were already speeding down the abandoned road behind the bar. Jasper turned the throttle all the way up, making the bike rush forward so furiously that Mike even sobered up and turned around with apprehension. At the first stop, the biker hurriedly got off and did not participate in this dangerous race. Jasper, on the other hand, asked for permission to take another lap, started the engine, and roared ahead. The guy forgot where he was, blissfully closed his eyes, enjoying the speed and the wind hitting his face, and when he opened them, it was too late. The bike was flying at full speed towards a concrete pole. In those few seconds before the collision, his whole life flew before his eyes. He saw his school years, his mother, the way he gave Amanda a teddy bear for her birthday, and the endless blue sky when he jumped out of a parachute for the first time. Euphoric from the flood of memories, he didn't even feel pain or fear in the moment he hit the pole. Smiling as he felt his body go numb, he closed his eyes and dissolved into the endless blue of the sky. People rushed to Jasper from all sides to help, but he didn't hear them. His mother opened the door and happily threw her arms around her son, welcoming him home. Reproaching him for not informing her in advance about the time of his arrival, Jasper hugged her and happily squeezed his eyes shut, inhaling the smell of freshly baked goods. When they finished hugging, Jasper went into the hallway and took the beautiful tea set he had brought for his mother as a present out of his bag. His mother took it and could not stop admiring her grown-up son. She took him into the kitchen to eat, but Jasper immediately began to ask her about Amanda. He couldn't understand why the girl didn't answer when he called her before he boarded the train, and thought maybe her mother had seen her and knew what had happened. His mother smiled nervously and, without looking her son in the eye, said that everything was fine with Amanda, but she was probably busy preparing for exams. The exams were far away, and Jasper realized that his mother was not telling him something, so he stopped asking questions. He quickly ate everything she had prepared, and after saying that he needed to go for a walk, he put on his jacket and ran out of the house. Jasper felt anxious at heart and quickly headed towards Amanda's place. After entering university, the girl had moved from the suburbs, where her parents lived, to the center of the city, closer to her studies. Together with her friend, they rented a small but very comfortable apartment, and Jasper remembered how happy she was about her freedom. He had promised her that when he returned from the army, they would get married and be together forever. Back then, Amanda had kissed him tenderly and smiled back. Overwhelmed by pleasant memories, Jasper did not notice how he got to the right building. He flew up to the second floor and started ringing the doorbell. There was disgruntled shouting from the apartment, and a strange woman came out who turned out to have lived in the apartment for 2 months and did not know any Amanda. Upset and worried, Jasper went outside and decided to stop by a familiar bar to clear his head. It was not until 3 months later that Jasper returned from his fantasy world. All that time he had been in a coma under the care of hospital medical staff. Waking up, he felt his mouth was dry and his tongue was hardly able to move. With difficulty, he was able to ask a nurse for a drink. She smiled cheerfully and congratulated him on his return, then gently gave him some water. Jasper felt a little better. A doctor came into the room and, seeing that the young man had regained consciousness, inquired about his well-being. Jasper realized that he could not feel his legs and his whole body was numb. "You've been lying here the rest of the fall. You missed Christmas and now it's almost February. Soon it will be spring. Listen to the birds sing. They're happy for the warmth in your return," said the doctor, and Jasper looked out the window at the black tree branches against the gray sky. "What about the motorcycle?" asked Jasper, remembering Mike's Harley. The doctor shrugged and smiled. "You can't even dream about motorcycles now. You had a broken spine and a massive head injury. It's a miracle you remember anything at all. By the way, why did you get on the bike drunk at all?" Jasper remembered Amanda's wedding and his heart shuddered, and he admitted reluctantly that it was because of the woman. The doctor came to the door and opened it slightly. "Is it because of her?" he asked. Jasper looked through the doorway and almost screamed. Amanda was standing there with her back to him. He recognized her at once by her dark hair and shapely figure. He gestured for the doctor to close the door and furiously attacked him. "What is she doing here? Why did you let her in here? Let her go to her husband. Send her away, please." The doctor said he couldn't kick the girl out who hadn't left Jasper's bedside all those 3 months. He also said that he knew their history from her. In addition, he told him that when she found out about Jasper's accident, she divorced her husband a week later and started to spend all her time here in the hospital waiting for Jasper to wake up. "I'm not a psychologist, but it seems to me that only someone who truly loves can do that. I don't need her love and I don't need her." Jasper covered his face with his hands and groaned. Doctor frowned and left. After a while, the door opened again and Amanda entered the room. "Hi, Jasper," she said shyly, shifting from foot to foot. The doctor said I could see you. Jasper interrupted her by calling her a traitor and covering his face with a blanket. Amanda could hardly hold back her tears and lowered her head. I made a mistake and I don't know what came over me. I succumbed to the wooing while you were away, and I have no excuse, she said quietly, and now I will try to make it right. I'm not asking anything of you. Just please don't tell me to go away. I want to help you. When you get back on your feet, I'll disappear right away. But in the meantime, please accept my help. Jasper listened to her in silence, then threw back the blanket and showed her his lifeless legs. I will never get up. Do you understand? He yelled, so loud that he himself had a ringing in his ears. Now I'll always lie there like a tree log and grumble like an old man, because I, a young 20-year-old boy, can't even go to the bathroom without help from someone else. Please go away and leave me alone, he said impatiently, turning back to the wall. Amanda left silently, and Jasper even felt sorry for her. He saw how she seemed to have grown old, and her beautiful face became gray and drained. The first burst of anger passed, and Jasper promised to be gentle with her if she came here again. Jasper was discharged from the hospital only in the summer. By then, he was able to sit and move around the house in a wheelchair. His mother was always by his side, taking care of him and supporting him when he started to mope. Amanda often visited Jasper as well and patiently tolerated his strained attitude toward her. Jasper gradually got used to having her around, but he still kept a cool head. To keep himself occupied, Jasper started repairing phones and computers at home. Even before joining the army, he had a serious interest in gadgets. He could assemble a new computer, clean the notebook from dust, and repair phones that had been dropped into water. His mother retrieved his old screwdrivers from the closet, and Jasper ordered more tools. Now, he spent his days sitting by the window, repairing gadgets brought in by neighbors and friends. He enjoyed this job very much and felt like a child tinkering with the gadgets. One day, the doorbell rang. When Jasper opened the door, he saw a group of television reporters led by Amanda. The reporters started talking without letting Jasper get a word in. "We are shooting a story about strong people with disabilities. Your friend told us that you would like to participate. How do you keep your spirits up?" Casper looked at Amanda with surprise and then turned to the reporter. "Yes, somehow everything comes out by itself. I just try not to dwell on negative thoughts. It can't get any worse than this." The reporter then asked, "What would you do if you could walk?" Jasper didn't appreciate the question and responded irritably, "I'd be doing what I was doing until you came along. You know, some of your questions are silly, as if I'm not a person like you. And I don't live an ordinary life like you do. Maybe you think that being able to walk gives you some kind of privilege over me." The reporter tried to explain himself, but Jasper interrupted. "All right, let's not get offended. After all, I have some privileges over you too." He smiled and continued, "Have you ever been on a plane?" The reporter looked at him in surprise and shrugged. "No, so you haven't been flying." "Well, I've flown 50 times. The reporter sighed in relief and said, "Yeah, I've skydived that many times." Jasper chuckled and replied, "You really are a strong man." He talked to the reporter for a little while longer before saying goodbye. When the TV reporters had left, Jasper looked angrily at Amanda, who was still in the room. And with a swing, he threw a thin screwdriver at the target hanging on the opposite wall. "Why did you bring those clowns?" he asked, returning to the phone repair. "You should have asked me before inviting them. Now they'll show me on all the channels, and then I'll have to blush. And what will my comrades in arms think if they see me on TV?" Amanda smiled guiltily and blushed. "Sorry, I meant well. I thought this way, maybe someone could help with the treatment." Jasper grinned. "Well, that's unlikely. There are thousands of people like me, if not more. Anyway, thank you and excuse me. I know you mean well. I do not know what comes over me sometimes. I'm tired of it all." Jasper girlishly slammed his palm on the wheel of his wheelchair and was silent. Amanda cautiously approached him and put her hands on his shoulders. "Everything will be fine. Just trust me." Jasper sat in silence and continued to work, and everything inside him was bubbling with despair. Only Amanda believed that all her efforts were not in vain, and in the end, her faith was rewarded. One day, as usual, Amanda dropped in on Jasper and he told her the amazing news just from the doorstep. It turned out that someone from the university clinic called him and offered to perform a free spine surgery by a famous surgeon who had seen a TV program about Jasper and decided to help him. Amanda rushed to Jasper and began to hug him. She wanted to accompany him to the surgery, but Jasper sternly said that she had to think about her studies and he could do it on his own. Amanda reluctantly agreed, and after Jasper left, she could not think about anything and waited for his return. Amanda only dreamed that Jasper would forgive her and return home on his own feet. So the weeks went by and still there was no news from Jasper. She had not been able to call him. His phone was switched off. 2 months later, on the way back from the store with some groceries for Jasper's mother, Amanda was in such a hurry that she dropped the bag from her hands near the entrance, and all its contents fell out on the ground. As she began to pick up the groceries, she suddenly felt someone gently wrap their arms around her face, closing her eyes. And then she heard a familiar voice above her ear, turned around and saw Jasper. The guy was standing on his feet and smiling. He stepped towards her and then hugged her and held her tightly to him. "Where's your wheelchair?" asked Amanda a few minutes later. Jasper waved his hand carelessly and grimaced. "I left it at the hospital. I don't need it anymore." Amanda laughed, and Jasper, meanwhile, took a small package out of his pocket and handed it to Amanda, saying that he had wanted to give it to her when he returned from the army. Amanda unwrapped the wrapping and found a beautiful ring in a small velvet box. She put the ring on her finger and cried, and Jasper said that he had always wanted Amanda to marry him. The young woman averted her eyes in embarrassment and immediately agreed, for she had been waiting for this for ages. Jasper picked up the packages from the ground, and the young couple hurried to share the wonderful news with his mother. After the wedding, when Jasper had fully recovered from his operation, he had the idea to start his own business and open a repair shop. He rented a small place not far from their home and spent all day repairing appliances, just as he had before. One evening, while Jasper was reading a book on the couch, Amanda came and sat beside him. He shared with her that they were expecting a baby, and possibly even more than one. Jasper smiled and joked that he would be overjoyed if they had 3 or even 5 children, as he had always dreamed of having a son. And now his dreams were coming true. This is the story of 2 people who loved each other and had been through so much, but managed to stay together no matter what.